Stay tuned because we're taking you inside a free meeting next on Fathers Are Parents Too. Welcome to Fathers Are Parents Too. This week we have a special guest, Brent Wellman. He's Associate Director for Fathers' Rights and Equality Exchange, also known as FREE, and he's also the Director of Legislative Affairs. And as I understand it, Brent has brought us some home movies. Is that right, Brent?
That's pretty much right. FREE is, among other things, a support group for fathers who are going through the throes of one form or another of the divorce process.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we do is to hold meetings throughout the country, and well, what I brought in today is some video film footage from a meeting that we held a few months ago with one of our local legislators here, and we allowed our members, and actually we're open to the public. We let anybody who had a problem bring this to the legislator's attention.
So now, was this more of an educational process for the members or for the legislator?
Oh, more so for the legislator. The father's rights is pretty much a backwater. There are some pretty highfalutin issues that go on in state houses, and we're really just a very minor piece of it. And many legislators just don't know our story, just don't know our line, and they just vote the way the party tells them to. And
okay, so now in a moment we're actually going to look at this tape you've brought. Do you want to set it up for us and tell us what we're going to see?
Our first testimonial is from a fellow that had a rather tumultuous breakup, and he goes into it in some great detail. The thing to remember with him is that he, the custodial parent in this case, went to some extreme lengths to prevent his getting custody, and she went to some pretty strange machinations as soon as she found out that she might lose the children to him.
As a result of her actions. All right,
Correct.
well, let's go and take a look at this footage and
I'd
see
love
what you've
to.
brought us.
Love to.
All right.
I'll start by telling you that 2 weeks ago today, I was found not guilty of attempted murder. And what that was about was a false accusation against me by my wife, which completely has, well, we're being divorced. Yeah, no, we haven't been together since. And what I'm about to tell you is about what happens and how unfair the system is to people in that situation. Before this happened, I had a home, I had a car, I had a business, I had a career, I had a life, I had dreams, and now it's gone. I had 2 little boys that fortunately, at first, after this happened, she took full custody, but she couldn't raise them. She had a lot of problems, and I was fortunate enough to get them back, and they live with me, which is really what usually doesn't happen in a case like this. And I was really fortunate because the accusations were made against me, and had she not continued in her ways and had her problems not surfaced in a reportable way, I would be in prison right now. What happened is, one night she attempted suicide. She slit her wrist, and I helped her, and I called the police, and I called an ambulance, and they came and they took her, and they informed her that she would be placed on a 72-hour hold, and she'd lose her freedom, and she'd be evaluated, and all those things. And the paramedics told her that those things would happen, and she, they say, became silent for about 10 minutes. And then on the way to the hospital, this is after she told the police that she did do this to herself. On the way to the hospital, she said, "If I told you something to the paramedic, would you have to tell anyone?" And he led her to believe the answer was no. And she, in an effort to get off the 72-hour hold, in her own words, so that she would not lose the kids in a divorce, she told the paramedic that I did this to her. And he told the police, and several hours later, I was arrested. And since then, things have happened. And the first thing that happened is in June, she was arrested for drug problems. And she was arrested for being under the influence of drugs, and she had some drugs with her, and she tried to blame another person for the possession of these drugs, very similar to what she did to me. She had moved out, obviously, and time went by and we went into a preliminary hearing where she actually testified that she did it to herself and that she did it because she was despondent and she didn't want to live, and she wanted to show me how I needed her in the kids' lives and in her life and in my life. And she testified in detail about what she did, yet I still was sent to trial. And the district attorney did it because he believed that she was recanting and that she was doing what any woman would do who's bound by something called a battered women syndrome. And the point of this is that there was no investigation. There was no investigation into me. They never went back to my house. They never investigated her. It was simply on her allegation. And even when she came back to tell them the truth, they wouldn't listen. And later on, after the hearing, she was walking into family court for a hearing and arrested again. Actually had drugs in her purse. Arrested in family court. And then all those things came to a head in June of this year. And she had to go to jail. In the meantime, over time, the children were with me more and more. They actually lived with me, and she had gotten to the point where she only saw them about every other weekend. However, she fought fiercely to not lose custody of those kids, and she used the system and the allegations against me to have me pay her support. She tried to extort me for an automobile. She threatened that she would testify against me if I didn't give her things, and all these things. Finally, she went to jail, and a week into jail, she attempted suicide again with a razor blade again. And all this came out, and yet I was still prosecuted. And I went off to a trial, and the district attorney actually went and testified on her behalf. Well, she was in jail and had her sentence reduced from 5 months to 3, and she was out of jail in 45 days. And not only was she out, but she was out and she was testifying against me in court. And she did, and that was okay because she didn't get away with it, obviously. And I was found not guilty. And the reason why I'm here, let me read this directly. What I have to say really is what I've been through. 2.5 years, more than $250,000 in legal fees, lost everything, including my job, my home, everything. And I'll say I'm at peace because I gave it all up, and I have my kids. And I would do it again. But the reason why I'm here to talk to you is because I believe that it's much too easy for irresponsible people to abuse laws and the whole system for their own personal gain. And I think they do it, and it's to the detriment of the people that these laws were set up to protect. And I think that these laws need to be looked at and need to be changed. And I think what happened to me should never happen to anybody ever again. I think that false allegations against a man right now of any kind of abuse are immediately and without any proof devastating to him and to his family and to his children. And it's an absolute guilty until proven innocent situation in the criminal courts and the family courts, and you have to fight. And if I didn't have a strong family, and if we couldn't raise the money and do the things that a lot of people couldn't do, I'd be in prison right now. And I'm here because I think, you know, I succeeded, and I feel an obligation to make it known what happened to me and to make sure that this won't happen again. And
so can we get the reaction from John?
Well, I'm not sure what there is to react to. I'm not. Let me just think out loud a bit. In terms of what the law provides, you know, you always have a series of where to allocate the responsibility for the mess up. The law can be wrong, but in this case, the law was wrong. It sounds like the allegation was false. The DA wrote it the wrong way. I mean, I'm not sure how. There's nothing in the law that I know that sanctions or encourages the prosecution of an innocent person on false charges. And I'm trying to what it is in a system that I'm not saying that, I'm not in any way condoning it, mind you. I'm trying to figure out what I would do in the way of changing the law. I'm not sure what law I would change.
I have a suggestion.
Okay, I'm happy to hear it. I'm just trying to think through what I heard, you know, and tell me the suggestion.
Yeah, the CAPTA statutes CAPTA, Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act, or the Mondale Act of 1974, as amended, allows for, among other things, for what is called a mandated reporter. When the paramedic in the story was told the allegation, he became, under that statute, a mandated reporter. Okay. He is given absolute immunity for anything that he reports as a mandated reporter. Okay. He is also under some penalty if he fails to show something that turns out later to be true. So there is always the a great motivator to turn in anything, no matter how ridiculous. And this is a theme that has come up for us time and time again. And I just wish, I didn't get your name, I wish you were alone. I wish you were the only one this has happened to.
How would you change that law? Would you not require them to report?
I would eliminate the immunity.
But if they report, I mean, again, let me just think out loud. If the paramedic, it sounds like the paramedic is sort of an in-between person who's required. If he comes across information, like teachers, if they find a kid that's been abused, they're required to tell so somebody can check it out. So the paramedic hears something and is required to tell it to somebody else. It seems like it's the DA's job to assess whether it's real and then to act accordingly. But the paramedic is sort of a transmitter that if he doesn't or she doesn't report it, that's me. I'm not sure that's the right solution. I'm trying of where to get at it. You know, I'm not condoning any of it.
Many times that simply does not occur.
Which does not occur?
That the DA.
It sounds like the DA is the one who's the appropriate target of.
Well, he also has prosecutorial immunity and probably should retain.
The DA.
Or the DA does.
Well, if he the laws, as I recall, I haven't practiced law for years, mind you. I've been trying to make them rather than practice, yeah. But I think if somebody falsely prosecutes, I don't think he's immune from that. Malicious prosecution is a crime, I think, and there's civil liabilities, both as I understand the law. Now, it's not easily proven or recovered on, but I don't think that they're totally immune from wrongly prosecuting somebody. It's not their job, and if they violate it, they should be put in jail as they try to do with this guy, you know.
Brent, that was a truly amazing story.
Wasn't it?
So this guy, his wife tried to kill herself, and
Yes.
then she told the authorities that he had done it to her. He was up on attempted murder.
Right.
That was amazing.
What's
Equally,
really amazing, what's really amazing is that the authorities in charge had no choice but to do that.
That's amazing, but what it was even more astonishing to me was, number one, this legislator, Mr. Vasconcellos, looked like a normal human. Well,
I don't know about normal.
and, no, and he seemed
Dress
like a
code is
very nice
optional
guy.
for John Vasconcellos.
And I believe I heard him say, now this is one of our lawmakers, and he said the law is wrong.
He allowed for the possibility the law is wrong. He is a very fair-minded gentleman. Has been in the legislature a very long time. Has been that casual through the whole 3 decades or so that he's been in the legislature.
So one of the things I see now with your meetings then is this gives people an opportunity who might not otherwise be able to get to their legislators and
sure.
talk to them. It's almost like you can't bring Muhammad to the mountain, so you're bringing that legislative mountain to the Mohammeds of your membership.
Right.
Is that's wonderful, and do you think it makes a difference?
Very much so. Free is very much in the hope business. And when men give up hope, they start giving up their children, they start giving up their lives, and they start getting despondent and having all these psychological problems. And when just having just much hope gives them a greater stability.
So now what have some of the positive outcomes been of your interfacing with the legislators in areas in which you have meetings? Or you, I know, sometimes go directly to the legislators in the lobby.
Yes, we do. I do a lot of door knocking. It's get the old knuckles. We generally educate them to the issues because they just haven't been exposed to it before.
Well, clearly, Mr. Vasconcellos was
Yes,
overwhelmed by this.
and he was very open to it too, and much to his credit. And then again, I had my chance to slip in this thing that we ought to get rid of the immunity in CAPTA. Actually, we probably ought to replace it with a police officer's immunity. A police officer is immune, but they have a limited immunity. You can't sue them for arresting you, but you can sue them for beating you up.
Okay, so what you're saying in the case of reporters, this emergency medical technician, you know, as long as he reported, he was required to report that, even if he thought her saying that her husband had died was bogus.
And he has no discretion.
Right.
No, we need to allow them that discretion, and I was able to get Vasconcellos' ear long enough to get that point across. I hope.
Now, when you actually have a chance to sit down with these legislators, and such as Mr. Vasconcellos, and you're telling them about these stories, is the response always that marked? Are they aware pretty much of these issues and just not doing anything about it, or are they really not aware? Are they so inundated by some of the other special interest groups that they really don't recognize that dads are really crying out for help?
There are a lot of them that are just plain ignorant of our issue. There are many that have bought the other side's line as simply the way the world is. And then there are a few that have views. Either they will welcome me with open arms, or they will listen stiffly while I say my piece and then say goodbye. And I never hear from them again. But generally it's a mass case of needing to educate legislators into our issues and why we believe that the present state of affairs is unfair. And they are fair-minded people, and they want to be fair. It's just a matter of letting them know what is fair and what to vote for.
Now, in a moment, we're going to take a break, and then we have some questions from the audience. But in about a minute, if you could, you say you're in the business of giving hope to these fathers. Can you give our audience some hope by maybe describing more positive legislative successes you've had? I think earlier you were mentioning a new made income that your organization helped get passed, and maybe some other bills. Is there one sort of as being really great?
We had a California bill that did exclude new made income. California has a child support formula, and both parties, their incomes go into it. But what happens when one or another marries? Does that other joint income then go into the child support formula? Giving the ex-wife a dividend when dad remarries. We got a bill passed unanimously.
Wow.
That said, no, you can't do that. There were we brought a number of women that had had real horror stories, and that's one of the keys to doing this, finding egregious examples,
Right.
like this fellow on the tape, and like this woman that came and had brought 3 children who she was supporting into the mix,
And yet
and
her income was included.
and her income was being included, and then grabbed by the ex-wife whom she had never met for
Wow.
children that she couldn't see, and she had to, one of her children had to leave college over
Wow.
this, and she said, my only solution left to this is I need to divorce the man I love.
Well, that
And when she
sounds-
said that, the room got very quiet, and so everybody's mind was suddenly made up.
That's great. That's a great story. We're going to go to a now, and when we come back, we're going to take some questions from the audience. We'll be
Excellent.
right back.
I'd like to talk about divorce. Not what it means to you as a parent, but what it means to your children, coming from someone whose parents are divorced. Some divorced parents feel the need to involve their children in disagreements by putting the other parent down. If you're a parent, step-parent, girlfriend, or boyfriend of someone who is involved in a divorce, please don't involve the children in the issue. It's a terrible feeling for someone to hear negative things about their parent, no matter how old they are or how true or insignificant you feel the comment is. You also have to know that the effects of trying to cut the other parent out of your children's life are even more devastating. FREE, the Father's Rights and Equality Exchange, is an organization that believes in having both parents in your child's life. For more information, call 1-500-4-DADS. I'm lucky in the fact that my mother has never interfered with my father's relationship. In fact, she always encouraged me to stay involved with him. But coming from someone who's been through a divorce with my parents, I realized that giving comments to your children that are negative about the other parent, it will only cause them to resent you. My parents may not always agree with each other, but I know I'm glad to have both of them in my life, and your kids will be too. Right, Mom?
Right. Welcome back to Fathers Are Parents Too. We're here with Brent Wellman from the Fathers Rights and Equality Exchange, and we have some questions for Mr. Wellman from the audience. Yes.
Yes, you said that there were other legislators that were at least open-minded to our issues. What can we do, if anything, to make our point to these people?
Well, I think your first step is to find out who these individuals are. Your local library can tell you from your address exactly who represents you at every level of the government. You should get that information from them and write it down and keep it to where you know what this information is, and then be ready to have it when you need to write a letter. And then write to them. Let them know your general feelings over the divorce mess, and you can even tell them a little bit about your case. You should be brief. And then if you really want to, many of these legislators have a open house, or they will have what they call a town hall meeting, where you can come and meet them at their office with a whole bunch of other people, and you get a few minutes with a mic, and you can tell issues, and this is a great way to get with your local legislators.
And actually, there's a local free group in the given area, because
Absolutely.
you're throughout the country, right? Then
Yep.
that's one way they could accomplish that, isn't it?
And we also have bills that are going through that we can inform you about, that you can tell them to vote yes or vote no. And we can even give you tips on how to write these letters and make them effective.
Okay, let's take another question. Yes.
Yes, my ex-wife remarried and relocated to Germany, and the promise that my son would be coming quarterly, and now that's changed since he's moved. Do I have any options?
Wow.
Gosh, I'm not an attorney, nor do I play one on TV. We don't know what your options are on an international basis. The story were less common.
From a legislative standpoint, though, if he's not getting relief from the current law, I would think that the thing to do would be, again, to contact his legislator, bring that story to him and say, here's what the laws have allowed my ex-wife to do, and let's change the laws. I'm assuming the law is not giving him relief. I don't know.
And if the a U.S. citizen, there are things that the State Department can do.
I think we have time for one more question, and one. Hello.
Hello. I was wondering, you said something about other legislators being sympathetic to us as an early question. I was wondering, who are those legislators, and have we had any legislators that actually changed their opinion toward fathers' rights since you've been doing your legislative thing?
There have been certain legislators in the California legislature that are particularly sympathetic to us. Usually they're those that have gone through the process themselves. One is a Compton senator who went through a very messy divorce, and he told me that the only reason that he had the joint custody that he had is that he had $100K to drop on litigation. And he says, I know you guys don't have that, and so I'm working for you. That is a great motivator for a legislature. Same sorts of things that we're going. Then there are those that have changed their mind. One of which comes to mind is Congressman Campbell from this area. He has shown himself to be very to our.
Now, Congressman Campbell is at the federal level now.
True.
Is your organization also working on federal legislation?
We are working on federal legislation. We're trying to get Campbell to introduce a bill for us, in fact. But most of the family law is set at the state level. We're most active in the various state houses. That means that a lot of times we need 50 laws passed if we have a particular issue. But it's a lot better than trying to run through thousands of individual family courts.
Okay, now we're just about done, but in about 30 seconds, if you could say one thing, getting motivated and what they can do to help influence, what would that one thing be?
Oh, you should get politically active. You should get with a free group. Failing that, get with any group. But we prefer you to get with a free group. And, we'll show you the way to get to your senator, get to your congressman, get to your assemblyman, and get them tuned in to our issues and get them to vote our way.
Brent, that was very educational. Will you come back with more footage?
I'd love to.
Well, thank you, Brent Wellman, for joining us. That's Brent Wellman, Fathers and Equality Exchange. And you join us next week here on Fathers Are Parents Too.